Okay, I think we're ready to begin. Well, as I said just a moment ago, welcome, Nate. Thank you for joining us. We're really looking forward to learning from you tonight and learning how we can take action.
Yeah, thanks
So
for having me.
let's begin. Yeah. So, first of all, just to begin, we know that unfortunately fracking is all too common in Colorado, and it can be a complicated regulatory process with state control and local government control over different aspects of regulating fracking in Colorado. So, what exactly, Nate, is the decision being made right now and by who?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So right now, the Sunlight Long well pad which is a mega pad with 32 proposed wells and over 35 acres, um, is up for approval with the Colorado ECMC, the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. So this pad has already received approval from Arapahoe County, and so this is really one of the last hurdles that Civitas would have to get over to get this pad underway.
Thank you. And what's the name of, can you say just one more time for us the name of this fracking megapad?
Yeah, so it's the State Sunlight Long pad. And we're obviously calling on them to deny the pad. There could be viable options much further east, but really we feel like the current location is unacceptable, and we're going to get into a lot of reasons for that. But
Yeah,
first and foremost, it's just very close to homes, schools, wildlife, and the Aurora Reservoir. So a lot of problems that we'll get into, but this is kind of the big one out of this broader area, and the most problematic.
I see. And we know some of us may recall that last summer, the ECMC, which is the state agency that regulates fracking in Colorado, that body, the ECMC, made a big decision towards the middle of last summer to approve a master plan for multiple fracking pads in this area around the Aurora Reservoir. So why are they making another decision now?
Yeah, so the decision last summer was to approve the Lowry Ranch CAP, or comprehensive area plan, proposed by Civitas. So that was the broader plan that included about 10 well pads and up to 150 wells. But it was really more of I guess, a process that Civitas chose to apply for to kind of fast track everything. All the pads still had to go through and are still going through um, their individual approvals as well, and that's the stage we're at now. Kind of a side note on that, the cap has been um, somewhat determined irrelevant right now due to some legal battles with other operators, and that is actually somewhat working against us because some of the conditions that were put in place for the cap are up for being essentially ignored now. So it's just another factor in this fight, but um, yeah, there's still a chance right now to um, stand up and fight this biggest pad, and um, send a message to these operators that we do care about our health and our wildlife and our communities.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that brings right into my next question is, what's important to know about this pad? So there's multiple pads proposed in the area, but what makes this one, the State Sunlight Long well pad, such a concern? What makes it such a concern?
Yeah, I think there's problems with some of the other pads, with proximity, to the reservoir still, and fire danger and some things like that for sure. But they are much further out, further from um, such critical infrastructure. So as far as we know, this is the largest pad ever proposed in the state. Certainly the largest, which would be considered a residential pad, within maybe say a mile of homes. Um, so the proximity, the location is first and foremost what's concerning. It's about 3,000 feet from the closest homes, 3,200 feet from Aurora Reservoir, and it is uphill from the reservoir as well. So if there's any sort of airborne spill, like the Bishop well pad spill in back in, I believe it was April up in Weld County, that could be catastrophic for the water supply for Aurora, a city of 400,000 people. Um, and then the size is concerning as well. It's going to be built up 35 plus acres, and if you walk the length of it end to end, it's about like walking Park Meadows Mall end to end. If anybody's ever been there, or the Broncos Stadium back and forth to make up the length of the stadium of this well pad. So it's massive, and then really the fracking and the horizontal wells are going to encompass a huge area. So it's going to be about 6 miles, span about 6 miles east to west, and 2 miles north to south. So about 12 square miles of fracked area, and that goes under about a half dozen schools, elementary schools, a middle school, a high school, 5 or 6 places of worship, businesses, and thousands of homes. So yeah, it's a long list. There's pretty extreme documented fire danger risk out in this area as well. So with a rural fire department being assigned to this, that's over 10 miles away. So we kind of see a perfect storm of conditions that set this up for a potential for disaster, which nobody wants to see.
I see, absolutely. Yeah, so it's the size of it, the proximity to all those sensitive areas, including homes and schools and the reservoir itself. It sounds like, and then that fire danger aspect is really concerning too.
Yeah,
Well,
I should note real quick, Bobby, too, that there is proposed fracking underneath Aurora Reservoir as well. So, situated right above it and with fracking underneath it. So,
yeah,
for us, just not a risk worth taking.
I hear you. All right. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about this particular fracking pad. I wondered if you'd be able to share with us a little bit more generally. What are the impacts of fracking, right? We know some of the impacts pretty well from other large fracking operations. So, what are the impacts of mega fracking pads like this one that we aren't know of?
Yeah, and I'll note that I think a lot of the members of our group are kind of self-taught, and we've built up knowledge over the last couple of years by reviewing these applications and learning more about fracking. But it can certainly pollute groundwater, surface waterways, lakes or reservoirs, streams, and spills and leaks and blowouts, I think, are not nearly as uncommon as the industry would want us to think. So um, it also consumes a tremendous amount of fresh water and permanently removes it from the water supply and destroys it. In the case of Sunlight Long and really all the pads in the Lowry Ranch Cap area, um, that fracked water is going to be trucked all the way up to Weld County to injection sites. So, um, you know, we're in some ways grateful it's not going to be injected into this area, but then it's causing another problem for other communities, and um, has to be trucked up there, causing a kind of a dangerous setup as well. Um, it also pollutes the air at every stage of the process. So from nitrogen oxides to VOCs and benzene, these are all types of air pollution that cause serious problems. And there's a lot of new research out from the University of Colorado showing effects, I think, in a much larger radius of these fracking sites than known before, including childhood leukemia. So it's pretty worrisome to our community, and I think for good reason. Um, and then I think, last but definitely not least, it's just a disruptive activity to wildlife, critical habitat. This area has everything from bald eagles to beavers and um, prairie dogs, threatened frogs, and fish. It's a really pretty diverse area, and a lot of people also come here to recreate and enjoy that peaceful environment. So that's certainly something that's going to be disturbed by this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been out to the Aurora Reservoir a number of times, and it is just such a beautiful, pristine landscape. It's some of the, what I understand, some of the most consistent, protected, pristine grasslands of that type in all of Colorado. So it's really a shame to put a bunch of fracking in it.
Yeah, and to us, it's a little confusing that the city doesn't allow motorboats on the Aurora Reservoir, and a lot of people really like that. It's quiet. It's um, keeps the water nice and clean and pure, but they really haven't seemed to have any problem with this proposal. So
And once fracking starts there, there'll be, other impacts, all that light pollution from the operations, the noise pollution, dust from all the truck traffic that's involved. So all those impacts will be felt at the reservoir, around the reservoir, and by the residents that live there.
yeah, yeah, and some of it's already begun. So there's a one site that was kind of fast tracked through during the cap application, and they're you're about to start drilling out there just east of the reservoir. So we know we can't stop everything, but we do know that the cumulative impacts of this are important. So every victory for us, even if it seems small, is a big victory, and that's what we've been fighting for.
Excellent. Thanks, Nate. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a different question. Maybe just a little bit about yourself, Nate, and how you got involved in this work, how you found your way to save the Aurora Reservoir and this important community movement to protect your community from fracking.
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up pretty close to this area, so I'm a Colorado native and grew up just a little south of here in Parker, Colorado, and I've lived in this community for about 11 or 12 years, but um, never really had anything like this on my radar. I've always been conservation minded and cared about the environment and our state, but didn't really see this coming in our backyard, so to speak. And I think a lot of residents have felt kind of blindsided as well. And even people moving in as recently as right now aren't necessarily notified of this, and it's kind of a shock once I think we're rightfully getting awareness out for it. So I've been helping out Star for 2.5 or 3 years. Initially, kind of with shirt designs and graphics and mailers and some of those things I was able to kind of do on nights and weekends, and then taking on a little larger role this year as one of the VPs of Star. So it's been it's been great. It's such a passionate group of people that really do amazing things as all volunteer organization. So I think silver lining, we've made a lot of good friends out of this, and it's something the community can largely agree on, which people agreeing on issues lately is not super difficult. So yeah, I'm grateful to Star, and um, grateful to Kevin Chan, the founder, for really noticing this and being on it and getting awareness, because I feel like a lot of these projects, the goal is to get it through as quick as possible with as little people noticing as possible. And luckily there's laws about notifications and things like that, but um, they can be skirted to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been lucky to know Star or Save the Aurora Reservoir for over 2 years now, 2.5 years, I'd say. And I continue to be impressed by your community. I think STAR follows in a long tradition of Coloradans standing up against fracking. And I see STAR as one of the most active and um, effective advocates against neighborhood fracking in the state right now, sort of in our phase of fighting fracking in Colorado that's post the passage of 181, which is a major state bill that changed a lot of the regulations in Colorado around fracking, really changed the landscape and really changed like how we movement build and how we push back against fracking. So that bill passed in 2019, and since then we've seen a lot of changes. And I would say that STAR is one of the groups that's the most active and most zealously advocating to protect communities and people and places and our planet against the impacts of fracking. So thank you, Nate. Thank you, STAR, for all that you do, for the example you set. So tell me a little bit more about what STAR has been doing around this proposal and in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another long list, but I'll kind of hit some highlights. So, I think from very early on, we were, going from stages of, you know, anger and disgust and hopelessness. And, I think our government officials would just tell us straight up, like, there's nothing you could do. There's no point in trying, like, that blunt. And maybe they thought they were doing us a favor by phrasing it that way. But luckily, that hasn't been the case. We've advocated for 2 rounds of new oil and gas regulations in Arapahoe County, which they claim and we believe are some of the best in the state and the country. We don't think they've gone nearly far enough, but it has put some safeguards in place, and we feel really good about that. We've been able to get one of the sites moved or abandoned for now, which is great. We've, with the help of Jason Crow, gotten the EPA to step in and shut down any drilling under the Lowry Superfund site, which should have been a no-brainer, but was in the original plans. And I think we just brought a lot of awareness to this kind of broken process in our state. So, those are a few things STAR's done. Right now, we are, trying to stay hyper focused on this Sunlight Long pad and really getting as many people out to this hearing in 2 days. On Thursday, we'll talk some more about that. As possible to either speak up or just be there and show your support, for our community. And we think a win on this would be a really kind of linchpin win for the rest of the state. So, you referenced all the great things STAR is doing. We try to collaborate a lot with other organizations and learn from them as well. So, I think that's really the only way forward is that kind of cooperation. So that's been really neat to see too.
Yeah, we're happy to partner with you and uplift all that you're doing. There's many representatives of other organizations here tonight that are helping to uplift your calls to action. So that's how it works. We've got to work together as a coalition, as a movement. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say about what you're hoping to achieve? Sort of what's the plan around this hearing and how we all can be a part of STAR's movement?
Yeah, we know I realize there's probably people from all over the state on this call, so that I mean, there's several opportunities. Obviously, if able, we'd love to see folks come out on Thursday night at Bonnie Blues event venue, which has a Elizabeth address, but it's really just about 7 or 8 minutes east of Southeast Aurora, east of the Blackstone neighborhood. So not too far out, a really pretty venue. And, we were excited to lock down an in-person hearing. We weren't going to let the state, wiggle out of that and go to a virtual hearing for something that's important. So, that'd be the first call to action. if folks aren't able to attend, there is still an opportunity to submit written comments on the ECMC's website. We've got this all linked to at savetheaurorareservoir.org. We have a public comment page, so it's all kind of summarized there. But really, just folks sharing their either their personal stories about how this affects them or their family or their kids, and then also really just hitting on the cold hard facts of what we talked about earlier with this proximity being too risky and ultimately not protective of health, safety, welfare, and the environment and wildlife resources, which is ECMC's mission. So we don't feel like there's any way they'd be living up to that mission while still approving this well. Todd.
Absolutely. Great. Well, good plan, Nate. Thank you, Star, for being so organized and zealous in your advocacy and sharing ways that we can all support you. So I've put some of those calls to action in our Zoom chat. So that first one Nate mentioned is to sign up to attend the in-person hearing if you're able to. That's at Bonnie Blue's event venue, 4225 Carlson Trail, Elizabeth, Colorado. And there's two links that you'll see there in the chat. One is to sign up to speak. So you need to sign up with the state. That's the first link to say I want to make a public comment at the public hearing. And then the second link is to RSVP with STAR, so that STAR knows that you're there and will be there, and they can plan for your participation with them at the event and communicate with you about the event and follow-up steps afterward. So if you're able to do it, I say definitely recommend doing those two steps: sign up to speak and RSVP with STAR. And if you're someone who hasn't spoken at a public hearing before, or you have any questions or concerns, I'm somebody you can talk to and to give you some advice and coaching. It can be really anything you want to say about this particular issue. You'll have just a few minutes to speak, 2 or 3 minutes usually. They'll let you know at the beginning. And you can just speak to the heart. You don't have to speak from your heart. You don't have to be an expert. But you do want to share genuine thoughts and concerns and questions that you have about this proposal. So that's step one: attend the hearing if you're able. And then step two, as Nate mentioned, is you can write a written comment. And this is for everybody. You don't have to be in the area. Anybody can submit a written comment. And the link that we've put there is a comment toolkit that has more instructions. It also has information about the hearing, just in case you need it. But save that toolkit because it has some background on the megapad. It has more details about some of the big concerns, and such as location and water and health. Those impacts are in there. And then at the bottom of the toolkit is tips for making effective public comments. So that can be a useful little resource guide to take a look at if you want some help with preparing your written comment. But again, I'm here to help if you want any help with preparing and submitting your written comment to the state. And the deadline for written comments is the 19th. So we actually have a little more time to get in written comments even after the public hearing on Thursday. And then step three I put in the chat is spread the word. Invite friends and family to do the same, to come to the hearing if they're able, or to submit a written comment. STAR's really asking for a huge turnout on this. The more people, the more Coloradans that speak up and participate in this, the better. That will send a strong message to the state that we care about this, we're watching, and we expect them to fulfill their mission to protect public health and safety in the environment. So please, please, please reach out, stretch yourself a little bit, and invite, extra friends and family. If each of us on this call were to invite just a handful of friends, that would be over 100 more people at this hearing or submitting written comments. So please, please do that. And then you'll also see I put in the chat some extra credit items. You can become a member of STAR. Anybody can join through the website, savetheaurorareservoir.org. And on that website, of course, you'll find lots of more information about STAR. But you can also follow Star on social media. That's a really great way to support Star, believe it or not, by following their social media posts and interacting with those posts, because it can help them reach a further audience by liking their posts, commenting on their posts, sharing their posts to your friends. That really helps uplift Star and get them to reach more Coloradans. And then, of course, you can donate to STAR. As Nate mentioned, this is a small, completely volunteer led organization doing incredible stuff to protect people and the environment from fracking. And even doing it with all volunteers, there are very real costs involved in fighting fracking. And so you can donate, even just a little bit can go a long way to help this truly grassroots community organization keep up the good fight to protect their community from fracking. So those are the calls to action. Go to the public hearing, submit a written comment, invite your friends and family, and then support STAR in those other ways if you can. Does anybody have any questions about the calls to action or the links for those calls to action in the chat?
Bobby, I'll just make a couple additions real quick. On the social media side, we've really put out some of our, I think, best content ever over the past 2 weeks. We've had a Star Voices series that addresses lots of different topics related to this pad, and some of them, not my own, are almost like professional quality, like National Geographic type videos. It's pretty amazing what some of these folks have done and the knowledge in the group. So those are great to watch. Pick a topic that seems interesting to you and take a look. And then we just put out our top 5 reasons to attend the hearing, which is basically great talking points right in itself, almost a public comments that write themselves. So our team did an awesome job putting those together, and it really hammers home those specifics of why this pad should be rejected.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. Well, let's take some time for your all's questions. Any questions that our audience here tonight has for Nate or myself, please feel free to type them in the chat. Or if we don't have too many coming in, we can also do just unmute and speak your question for Nate or I. I see that we already have one question in the chat, so we'll get started there. But please enter your questions, any questions you have about what's being proposed, what's being decided, and how we can help push back against it. So the first question I see is, should we bring signs or wear a specific color to represent STAR at the public hearing?
Yeah, great question. Looks like that's from Brandon. The ECMC is fairly strict about signs. We can certainly have them outside, but not in the hearing room. So I would say probably no to signs, but certainly a specific color. We have basically a navy blue, I think, either kind of like this or Bobby's door that she painted in support of Star as well would be perfect. So yep, it's blue. We do have Star shirts on our website. I don't know if they would come through in time, but we might have a few extra the kind of viral shirts we're putting together for the hearing as well. But yep, blue is we want a sea of blue out there in the audience.
Right, good question and clear answer. Thank you. All right, see another question about the hearing. What type of parking access will there be at the public hearing?
Yeah, to be transparent, that's one of our concerns as Star. The ECMC is hosting this hearing, but we have obviously an interest in it as well. So there is a parking lot at the site. It's basically a event or wedding venue. So they're certainly equipped with a large lot. There's some overflow parking in a field right next to it, and then there's also parking along the street. So there should be plenty of parking. We expect some people to come earlier, and then kind of another wave of people maybe will come a little later, since it's a 3.5 hour time frame from 5 to 8:30. But certainly, if you have the opportunity to carpool, I know our kind of internal team is doing that just to help out, and we'd rather be packed into one vehicle than take up a bunch of spots for other guests coming.
Great. And did you say, should folks plan to arrive early? Is there a need for that?
I think the only incentive really to arrive early would be just to secure a speaking spot. We don't really know. Our expectation and hope is that the ECMC will let every person who wants to speak. But I think if somebody might show up at 8 o'clock when it's set to wrap up at 8:30, and there's still you know 20 numbers to get through, I don't know that they're going to add more numbers. So it's that's a little bit of the game we're playing here, but we do think the expectation is not certainly for everybody to be there from 4:45 all the way to 8:30. So come when you're available, and your support will matter. I would sign up in to speak in advance with the link that Bobby shared. I think that's a little more, I guess, fuel to to tell the ECMC that you had intended to speak all along, and it wasn't kind of a on the fly decision.
Yeah. Okay, great. I see a few more questions in the chat. If you don't live in the surrounding area, are there any concerns that the speaker won't be taken seriously?
I don't think so. I think in some of these sessions they'll ask your name and address, but certainly people don't necessarily provide that at all. Um, Ultimately, this is not just a local issue. This is the air we all breathe, and um, I think anybody living in this state is, um, has standing in this hearing. So um, I don't think so. I think if your points are valid and relevant to this pad, I think they'll be taken seriously. I think the you know broader probably comments with maybe issues with process or the ECMC in general or anything like that should probably be kept more to their weekly general hearings, and this should be specific to the Sunlight Long well pad.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think you're right, Nate. We really want to make sure comments are specific to this proposal, this well pad, um, because that is the decision before the state. And I think they do really take note of comments from residents that are direct, like most closely impacted, but that can be anybody who enjoys the area, right, for any reason. But then, as Nate also mentioned, this will impact more than just Southeast Aurora, because of the size and scope of it and the cumulative impacts of all of this fracking in our state that is one of the largest contributors to climate change in Colorado. It is the largest, fracking in general is the largest source of greenhouse gases coming from Colorado. And it is one of the largest contributors to the very dangerous ozone air pollution problem that we have all along the Front Range. So anybody who shares planet Earth's climate is impacted by this kind of fracking proposal. All right, I see another question. How often do they have public hearings on fracking? And who proposed this deal? Would sending a letter to them help as well? Well, I can
Yeah,
answer a
great
little bit of the
question.
first one, Nate. Do you want me to
Sure,
take a
sure,
stab?
go for it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, there are fracking proposals happening all the time, big and small, and they go before the state on a nearly weekly basis. But many of them are not of this scale and this scope and this close to people. So that's what makes this different. But most of the public hearings are all virtual. They're on Zoom, just like this, and they happen on Wednesday mornings, and they're not very accessible for most Coloradans. A public hearing, like in-person public hearing in the community, like the one that will happen on Thursday, is much more rare. And I believe this is only the third one that we've ever had of this type of public hearing required by the new regulations. And so this is a unique, important opportunity for Coloradans to speak up about their concerns around fracking. So that's the answer to the first question. And Nate, do you want to take the second part of the question?
Yeah, and just to piggyback a little on that, I believe Star was the first group to actually get one of these. It's called a 511 hearing. So hopefully, more communities and organizations will follow suit with that, and it'll become more of the norm than the exception. And the site is proposed by Civitas. We've certainly um, you know encouraged folks to reach out to them early in the process. I I don't think I think they're pretty dug in on wanting to push this one through. Certainly wouldn't think it would hurt anything to raise any concerns, but I really think it's more the regulatory agencies at this point where we can have an impact, or through legal avenues.
Great. Okay, I see another question in our chat. What about handouts for the commissioners while we speak? Is that allowed or appropriate? It would be images of
Uh,
animals in the area and also stats that I have found that I want to ensure the ECMC has.
yes, we have seen them have a history of accepting those handouts, and letting folks know that they'll review them in more detail later. So um, I think that's certainly appropriate, and has not been discouraged at any of the past hearings. I think it's actually a great idea. 3 minutes, or in some cases, it could be cut to 2 minutes if there's so many people. Is not a lot of time to get a point across. So I think using those handouts for supplemental information or photos is a good thing. I would say the one thing we just don't see is the commissioners do not answer questions in the hearing. They don't really react necessarily. So as you're making comments, kind of expect a blank stare, but they'll assure you they're listening, and that they'll probably watch it back as well. So one other quick note there too. I think we're expecting there's 5 ECMC commissioners. We're expecting 3 at this hearing, which is, we'd love to have 5, but I know they live all over the state, and commitments are somewhat tough, and we did work hard to get enough time to get our community together for this hearing. So they will record it, and the other 2 commissioners will watch it back.
Yeah, they'll all watch it eventually. It's too bad they can't all be there, because I think it looks like this is shaping up to be possibly the largest public hearing on fracking in Colorado, at least to my knowledge and my experience. And it's too bad they can't all be there, but we know how it goes. Yeah, so I'm excited because I think it's going to be a huge turnout and just a really powerful moment for Coloradans to speak up about their concerns about the impacts to our health and our safety and our environment. So I'm really looking forward to being there myself. I've already signed up with the state to speak at the hearing, and also RSVP'd with Star. So I'm all signed up to ready to go. And I see some
Practicing
other
what you
folks
preach. We love
are
it.
putting it in there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, other people are saying they're signed up, they'll be there, when they're planning to get there. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I see another question. Has there been any traction to push for a fracking moratorium at the local level?
um, that was proposed earlier on. I want to say about 2 or 2.5 years ago. A 6-month pause. I I don't want to speak incorrectly. I believe it did not go through, but then the county did commit to get their new regulations in place before reviewing any more applications. But since they've done those 2 rounds of regulations, they've basically been like, game on, check the boxes. If you can check the boxes, you get your application through and approved. And if you can't check the boxes, we'll help you check the boxes. So, it's been, I think they dedicated a lot of time and resources to getting those in place, and now they really don't want to hear any more about it in our county, in Arapahoe County.
Yeah. Thanks,
But we'd love to see it. We'd love to see a moratorium. We'd love to see, a pause on any approved applications for Civitas, because they have, a documented track record now with the ECMC of falsifying data. And we think that's a pretty serious offense and a pretty strong sign of what type of operator they are. So, we'd love to see a broader investigation and by the ECMC and more calls for, less kind of slap on the wrist types of repercussions for them.
Sure. All right, thanks. I think that's all the questions I saw in the chat. Did I miss anybody's question? Sometimes it's easy to miss one along the way. Are there any other questions that have popped up? Anybody who would like to unmute and ask a question directly? I've also put the action steps in the chat one more time. So you've got the links to sign up to speak and RSVP to STAR, the link to the comment toolkit where you can get a lot more information and submit your written comment. And just a reminder to invite friends and family. It's just a couple days away. And so this is kind of a critical time to invite anybody that you know that could be there or submit a written comment. And of course, those extra credit steps as well to join STAR. Check out STAR's website. Check out and follow their social media and donate to the cause. Nate, you mentioned that 5 reasons to attend the hearing post, and that sounded really helpful and interesting. Do you by chance have a link to that post that we could also share in our chat?
I don't know if I do, but it should be the most recent post on both our Instagram and our public Facebook page. So if you're on either of those channels, we'll probably get it up on our website as a blog post as well. But the Facebook and Instagram pages would be the best place to find that.
Okay. Oh, I think I found that. All right. I'm going to see if I can get a share link. Yeah. Okay. I'm putting the direct link to that Facebook post in the chat.
Thank
okay.
you.
Any other questions?
Hot off the presses.
All right. It looks great. Well done, Star. All right. I see one hand for one last question. How about go ahead, Bill?
Thanks, Bobby. Seems to me these commissioners have been doing this for years, and they're just accustomed to all the residents opposing it and all the industry in favor of it, and they just assume it's going to go through. And I don't know that they're really listening to us. And I guess one of the things they believe is everything's going to go in the future like it went in the past. And so I was trying to see if I could come up with ideas that would change that. Go through all of the, or as many as I can, of the examples in the past where something was wonderful, like DDT in the 1940s. And then in the 60s, it was awful, right? Asbestos was wonderful in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And now you can't even do a minor construction project without testing for asbestos. And some company just paid, who is it? 3M just paid, I don't know, $300 million for settlement of something else. And in every case, the companies swore up until the very last minute that everything was fine. And then the scientists' work finally filtered up and, it turned around completely. And if anybody wants to speak but doesn't have a good topic, I'd be glad to offer some of these points that I've been researching. And I can't do them all in 3 minutes myself. Thank you.
Great point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, I think ultimately, I think some of these commissioners take the approach that they have a very limited scope of what they can do, and you know, their power, so to speak. But at the end of the day, if you know, we try to drive home the point that if they're upholding um, the law and their mission, they really do have a discretionary um, decision making power, and um, they're going to prove a point one way or the other with this pad, that they either think this is fine to put this, you know, right next to a drinking supply for 400,000 people, and right next to tens of thousands of homes, and in an area with critical wildlife, or they can you know, make the stand that's just gone a bit too far, even for their liking. So you know, we'll see, but we know the public pressure, and especially even just the media. We're going to have some media there, and you know, the public nature of it, I think it can be really powerful. So um, that's what we're hoping for and banking on.
That's what we're going to do. We're all going to support Star as much as we can on this one, because I think the state really, you know, everyone's watching and hoping for a good result here. And no matter what happens, this won't be the end of the fight. So on Thursday's hearing, it is just a public hearing. They'll be listening to concerned constituents all night. There will be no decision made on Thursday. That'll happen later at a regular commissioner meeting on one of their typical Wednesday morning meetings that they hold every week. So Thursday, no decision, but our opportunity to really speak up and send a strong message to the state. So again, those links are in the chat. If you have any other questions that pop up after this, you can reach out to me, Bobby at 350colorado.org. And I'm also here, as I mentioned, to help you with preparing comments, help you with attending the hearing if you're able, and otherwise supporting our movement to fight fracking in Colorado. Any last words you'd like to share with us tonight, Nate?
Just thanks for having me. Thanks for all you guys' support of Star and our cause, and you know, we hope we can return the favor to other organizations in the state as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, thanks for being our guest speaker tonight, and thank you all for attending this emergency info session on a really important hearing, an opportunity to speak up and stand up against fracking in Colorado.
Yes, thank you guys.